Hello, welcome to Journey to Self Care. I am your host, Janelle, founder of JS Self Care. Today we have a special guest named Latrina Caldwell, founder and CEO of Choose to Change. Without further ado, let's discuss Latrina's journey.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, I'm Latrina C. I am the owner and founder of Choose to Change Coaching and Consulting. I'm also a psychotherapist practitioner and a published author and a community leader. And my journey to self care started about 4 years ago. I fell asleep driving and my daughter screamed and it woke me up. And at that moment, I realized that I could have lost my life, and that's because I wasn't taking care of myself. So my journey was forced upon me. And so my journey for self care is so personal because, again, I could have lost everything. My kids would have been left alone. It just would have been a disaster. So at that point of waking up and realizing that I need to take care of myself, it started my journey with self-care and loving myself. And I had to go through some traumatic things. I was forced to face my mental health. I was forced to stop and say, what are you not doing? What's going on? Why did you fall asleep driving? What is it that you're not doing for you? So what happened was I had unaddressed sleep apnea and it was chronic. And I don't know if people know what sleep apnea is. It's a disease where if it's untreated, you can fall asleep at any given time. You're always tired. It can affect your heart. It's really not good. And because of not being aware of taking care of myself and not really clear of even who I was at that time, was bad for me. And that's when my journey started. So then I started to get to know Latrina, get to know what I loved, what I liked, what I didn't like, who I was. And it made me tap into my spiritual background. It made me get more connected to God because I wanted to know who I was. I was tired of trying to look at other people for validation. I looked at food for validation. I looked at my kids for validation. I looked at my employer for validation. So I wanted to validate myself. So I had to start to do some soul searching. And I went to therapy. I was in and out of therapy already. It had been in and out for 10 years. And if we be honest about therapy, in the beginning, sometimes it's hard to find someone you really connect with.
That is true.
Yes, most people don't go into therapy and just tell the whole truth right away. You have to get comfortable. You have to find a connection. So when I was going to therapy, I was just going. I was learning about me, how to journal or how to just talk but they weren't really getting to my core and getting to my problem. And then that happened because I figured out now that those therapists before didn't look like me. They couldn't relate to me. And when you first start therapy, sometimes you're not thinking about that. You're just thinking about, I'm trying to get some help. I'm trying to push myself to go and get help. So you don't know that you're not connected in the way that you really should be connected. So I would tell anybody to seek therapy now, whether it's self-care, whether it's just in life generally. I think we all should just talk to someone about the things that we've been through. So I was in and out of therapy for 10 years. I went through some traumatic things with my children. So I'm a 20-year survivor at this point of domestic violence. So going in and out of therapy, I really didn't find myself. But once that almost accident happened, then therapy looked different for me. It's like something sparked on the inside of me when I got in touch with my spiritual side even more.
Mm-hmm.
I took myself more serious. It was like I want to live. I had made the choice. That's what really happened. I had to make
That
that
car
decision.
accident really
Yes.
shocked the mess out of you. It was
Yes.
like, wow.
It,
And did you know you had sleep apnea and
I
just didn't
did.
take care of it?
I did. And I did not take care of it because I didn't know who I was. I was damaged. I didn't know how to take care of myself, period. I just knew how to survive.
Could it
I
be,
knew how to
Latrina, that you were busy taking care of others and you
Yes.
forgot the one person?
Oh, yes, for sure. For sure. When you are like, I feel like I was the black sheep, but I was also the first college graduate. I was also the first business owner. Now, all the things that people used to say or thought as I grew up and all the trauma I've been through, I'm still the one that kind of made it. So it just was rough for me. Yeah, I was taking care of everybody else, but then nobody take care of me, and I wasn't taking care of me. And I know,
Sometimes that happens because we're so focused on the outside that we forget the inside. We literally forget the inside because we're like, we got to take care of our family, we got to take care of our
yes,
kids, our husbands, our spouses, our
yes,
partners. We got to do everything. And like you said, you knew you had sleep apnea, but you chose to take care of others opposed to taking care of you until that vicious, you almost getting into a vicious car accident.
I would have killed me and my baby possibly, and that was a life and death moment for me.
Absolutely.
That changed my life right there. When I tell you, after that and really soul searching, I took off with self-love and self-care. I started to read. I wanted to go to groups. I even in work, I did more in work. I just did more with myself. I wanted to get to know Latrina. And I used to fall to my knees. I used to cry, pray. I stayed in my word. I stayed connected to something positive. I started realizing that if I stay connected to something positive, it'll feed me better. And then this will help me heal. This is helping me heal. So I was 345 pounds. I was very unhealthy. I just was living. I didn't even see myself. The image I saw in the mirror, when I look back at pictures now, it's like that's not what I saw in the mirror. I had no idea that I looked like that because I wasn't taking care of myself because I was taking care of everybody else.
Hmm. And
I,
sometimes we fall victim to that.
yes, and that was hard.
Hmm. So Trina, you did say you experienced some domestic violence
Yes.
20 years ago. Would you mind just speaking about that? Because believe it or not, all of that leads up to what happened in the car. Because all of those things
Wow.
were like your wake up call. We may not realize it, but so many signs. You know how you're a therapist. We always say the red flags are there, that they
Yes.
were there. So, do you mind just sharing a little bit of what you experienced?
Sure. So, first of all, my abuse started when I was a little girl because I was touched before by my mother's first husband, and he used to beat her. So, when she would get beaten, sometimes we would get beaten, me and my two brothers. But as we grew up a little bit, um, I decided one day he hit us and I hit him back. And I'll never forget, I was 14. I knocked the wind out of him. And things changed for me. I went and lived with a family member. I pursued life. So fast forward, I moved to Minnesota from Chicago. I was 17. Met a guy, ended up getting in a relationship with him. He was a little younger than me. He was 2 years younger than me, but he had told me he was older. So I ended up getting pregnant. My entire pregnancy, he beat me. And when I tell you, I seen my mother go through it. So I repeated the cycle without even knowing that I was getting in the cycle. I repeated the cycle. And the pregnancy was so rough, I stayed in and out the hospital. I didn't know what was going on. I'm 18 years old at this time. So I don't really know that this ain't love or because I had been through so much trauma. So
Yes.
it was familiar to
And
me.
you were taught that is love
Yes, because
because you
it was
saw it.
familiar. It was
Yes.
familiar. So my whole pregnancy, I went through abuse, but I made it through. And when my daughter was 8 months old, um, I left him, and that was it. That was it, and that's when life really started. And I
Hmm.
started to go back to church because a lot of us are raised in church. And somehow, I'm gonna be honest, we lose ourselves along the way and we get disconnected by the worldly things or people, places, or things.
True
But I
that.
started to reconnect back with the Father. And he started to speak to me. It was crazy. I remember one day in church, he told me, I'm using you. Because I used to think he forgot about me. My pain was so much, but I knew I was special though, because I was
Absolutely.
around a lot and I pushed through a lot. I saw a lot growing up in Chicago and I pushed through. So I knew I was special, but I still felt like he forgot about me. It was so crazy. But it's like he spoke to me in church one day and said, I chose you. Now you can be an example. You can show people that they can make it. And when I tell you, that's when life changed for me. That's when I got into therapy helping my daughter because of the abuse. She had mental health challenges. So
Mm-hmm.
I went through the storm. And I'm okay with sharing. I pray that this
Yes,
helps someone else. I went to
this will.
parenting classes. Let me tell you, I got my GED. I was 27 years old. You'll read it in the book that I sent to you. I was
Yes.
27. I dropped out in ninth grade. I saw my daughters. I had two daughters by this time. And I said, no, they have to be better than me. I have to do something different. And I slowly started taking my
That's
power
when you
back.
started challenging yourself.
Yes, I started taking my power back. I did therapy. I was in and out of therapy for 10 years with my kids because I wanted to give them something. I pushed past my limits.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got my GED, I went to college. I graduated. Like, I wasn't playing. Then I started working as a case manager at a domestic violence center
Wow.
as an intern from college. And I stayed there for 7 years. And when the director set me down and said, Latrina, you left your mark, I was able to let the women know I am you. Because they used
Mm-hmm.
to say, you ain't been through nothing. Y'all not. No, honey. I went through a whole pregnancy abused. If that ain't damaging your spirit, what is? When you have a soul inside of you that you're fighting for, a love that's like no other for my children.
Mm-hmm. And Latrina, that's how so many people can connect with you. They connect with relatable people. Like you said, you was in and out of therapy because you didn't find a therapist that looked like you.
Yes.
You
Yes.
didn't find a therapist that you felt couldn't relate to you. And once you find a therapist that can relate to you, it's like a shift.
Yes.
So what
Yes.
does that shift look like for you?
I I became the therapist that I
Hmm.
could relate to.
Yep.
And that means the world to me right now because I have clients that, let me tell you, they will call me like they love it, and I get to be my whole self and give my whole heart and let them know I was you. I used myself. No, I walked through domestic violence.
Hmm.
I was raped. I let them know, and they think people view me now. You might know this, Janelle, even about you. People will view you now like you just have it all together, and you're just this. We've been through some
Some
things.
stuff. That's right. That's how
This,
we get to where we are. And
yes,
that's why it's called Journey to Self Care. It's a
yes,
journey and it's a real rocky journey. It's not a smooth ride.
no, and it's work. It's
Yes,
work to get to know yourself.
it is.
We put work into other people, places, or things. Let's put the work into getting to know ourselves. And when I started to put the work into getting to know who Latrina was, it was a game changer for me.
And you
It's like
only
I
4 years
learned
into the
how.
work, right? 4 hard
Yes,
years into the work.
4 hard years with my whole heart. Yes. And I live a self-care lifestyle at this point. It's no longer a task for me. I used to be in the beginning of therapy, go get your nails done, just set some time for self-care. The more I got into self-care and myself and self-love, it's a lifestyle. There is no way we should be scheduling time for ourselves as much as
Absolutely.
we do, as much as we do for others, ourselves, and just living this life.
So, what does that lifestyle look like for you now, Latrina?
Well, in my self care ebook, I created a rule. It's called the 5 by 5 rule. And I break all the areas of self care down from spirit to relationship to emotional, everything from mental health. And I talk about this rule where 5 minutes, 5 times a day. You could take it all at once. You could take it, it's 24 hours. I tell people when they say, don't you mean 5 times a week? No, you can't spend 25 minutes out of 24 hours on yourself.
Hmm.
Come on now. Come on now. We already been overworked and underpaid long
Absolutely.
enough. It's time for us to take our power back. I want to be healthy and whole so I can help the next sister or
Absolutely.
the next child.
So
So no,
true.
So that 5 by 5 rule, it will create this lifestyle for you. It'll lay the foundation.
Okay.
And I do it consistently. And I set reminders to remind me to do it because we get busy.
Yes.
We get busy.
So the 5-5 rule, would you be able to explain it? I know it's in a book, but just a little breakdown, like a little sneak peek.
Okay, so it's 5 by 5. Again, it's 5 minutes, 5 times a day. That's 25 minutes out of 24 hours. So in 5 minutes, sometimes I sit, get me a cup of tea, I go sit by the window, and I just look out the window and I just sit in peace. Another 5 minutes, I may journal for a little bit. Right, another 5 minutes, I may walk up and down the stairs. I give you a list of different things you can do inside of your home during quarantine in 5 minutes.
So the five five
And
five rule is actually free.
yes,
And that is what self-care is about.
yes, it won't cost you anything but time.
And we do have time for ourselves.
Yes,
We
we
have to
do.
make time.
We
We
should.
sh- we have
Exactly.
to carve out time for ourselves. And one of the things that I also do with my coaching clients, you know what I tell them? Take your self-soothing box, find a corner, explain to your family, if you see me in this corner, do not disturb me.
Yes.
So that way,
Yes.
that's part of your 5-5-5 rule. Like when you see me
Yes.
here and you see me doing this,
Yes.
the do not
Yes.
disturb button is on. Unless somebody's bleeding or dying,
Yes.
do not
Okay.
disturb me. Because a lot of people have small children and, kids be like,
Yes.
mommy, mommy, mommy. So you know how
Yes.
that is.
Yes, I do. But it's a way around everything. We make a way for whatever we want to make a way for.
Mm-hmm.
So make a way for ourselves. If you have to take it all at night when the children are asleep or nap time, then you do what you have to do for you.
So true. I'm going to incorporate that in my lifestyle and my self-care journey because sometimes it's not that I forget I'm doing a 9 to 5 job in
Me too. Yep.
the
Hmm.
business and then I'm on Clubhouse.
Hmm.
So Clubhouse is like,
Hmm.
you,
I know. I see you,
I,
girl. I see you, and I love it, and I
yes,
respect it. Thank
thank
you.
you. So Latrina, when I met you on Clubhouse, you were
Hmm.
talking about one of your children. Are you able to
Hmm.
disclose that on the podcast?
I'm okay
Oh,
with that because she has a podcast and she is now speaking her truth. So yes.
thank
So
you.
my oldest daughter, I spoke about her mental health, and she's 20 now. And she's been living on her own for 2 years. She has taken her power back and she has struggled with mental health. And I'm so proud of her and my everything. So my other baby girl, she's 16 and she plays basketball, but she was diagnosed at 5 years old with an autoimmune disease called Crohn's disease. And that was the first I've ever heard of this disease. Now, I had stated earlier that I got my GED. I was 27 when I obtained my GED. So once I went to college, my baby began to get sick. So I was in college working 2 part-time jobs and at the hospital most of my time with my daughter. So what happened was I began to notice when she was around 3 or 4 that she was having fevers back to back. And when I would take her in, they couldn't diagnose it. It was no cause. So at some degree, they diagnosed it with unknown fevers. And I'm like, what is unknown fevers? So I started to put my thinking cap on and I thought, let me go to as many different clinics and hospitals and not tell each other. Because
Mm,
at this point, the hospitals weren't in sync like they are
right.
now.
You went into mommy mode.
Yes, for my baby, because we got to figure this thing out.
That's right.
So we did. So I whittled my way through things, and I saw a fever specialist. And then the fever specialist said, "I've seen something like this. It's not that common, but maybe go to the GI doctor." So then I went to the GI doctor, and we began to do a lot of tests. And my daughter, she don't like hospitals to this
Mm.
day because of the pain that she went through, but now she's getting more used to it. So at that point, we went to the GI doctor and then she went through several different tests. When I tell you being in college and working and going through that process was a lot. But I guess God was preparing me, right?
Mm.
I told you He spoke to me prior to that in church. So um, when she was diagnosed with Crohn's, and she had lost a lot of weight. She was unrecognizable at this time. She didn't even look like my child because she was a healthy, chunky baby. She was bigger than my oldest daughter when she
Wow.
were born. And I had never, her dad hadn't heard of this. I hadn't heard of this. I don't know if it's even that common in African American people. I'm gonna just be honest,
Mm-hmm.
right? So then I researched it, and when she was diagnosed, it was hard because I really didn't know what to do, and I was very young. But I did seek support, that therapy. I was able to talk to the therapist about it. I went to every program that was available to help me try to understand what this was, and she went through a lot of treatments. And it was really difficult because I felt alone. No one really could relate. Their daughter
Of
didn't have
that.
this illness. No
Mm-hmm.
one had heard of this. It wasn't, we didn't hear, no one I knew had heard of this illness. So we went through a lot of treatments, and when she first started, it's like her color came back, like her life came back in her body, and it was amazing. And then it wore off. So then we had to do different treatments throughout. And my daughter, even as a little girl, she used to keep a basketball in her hand. She was 2 years old. I still have the picture. She had a ball. And to this day, she's 16 and she plays
She
varsity
still
as
has
a
that
junior.
ball in her hand.
She still has that ball. When I
Blessings.
tell you, my daughter, she hid the fact that she had this illness because she wanted to be viewed as
Mm-hmm.
normal. So we played basketball, and I would see her when she's not feeling what she would push. She would push through. And it was amazing to see her throughout the years, her progress. Like even right now, she's at practice. She's very dedicated. She's been on the honor roll for 5 years.
Wow. Well, Latrina, you do know where she gets that push from, right? Her mother.
Yes, I do.
Her mother.
Yes.
That's all she needed
Yes.
to see was her mother push through. And then these
Yes.
kids, they become resilient.
Yes.
So even when
Yes.
she's
And
sick, she's still helping her teammates out.
she is out on the court like as the captain role, like, come on, let's do this. She speaks so intelligently on her
Mm,
podcast because she started her
yes.
own. And I was amazed. And she talked about me, like my parents and my mother showed me this. My mother, I was like, oh my goodness.
These kids are
I was so
very
proud.
smart.
Yes, but it's like she's fighting that disease.
Hmm. She's going to beat it,
She's
Latrina. She's
yes,
not going to let
yes,
the disease beat her.
yes,
And
yes,
that's something that everyone in the world needs to hear, that our children are
yes,
resilient. We give them less
yes,
credit than what they need. We need to give these children more credit. And what would you
yes.
say to a mother listening to this podcast if their child has an autoimmune disease? What encouraging words could you give a mother?
I would say you are not alone.
Hmm.
I would say that keep your spiritual connection. There are support teams, support systems out here for illnesses. My daughter's school, someone introduced me to a support team. So seek help. It's available. I do complimentary discovery calls. Call me. I'm okay with sharing resources or motivation because I understand. And we can do it. We can do it. Keep a positive mind. I send blessings and positive energy to you, and you can do it. We can do it. We will overcome.
Absolutely, we will. And that's just being resilient, just waking up and knowing that the journey is real.
Yes.
The journey is
And you're
real
not
and you're
alone.
not alone. There's always somebody who have gone through the same thing as someone else. It's just a different experience. And
Yes.
that's why we
Yes.
always say, as therapists, you're not alone.
Yes.
No, we may not cannot relate to every situation, but you're not alone.
Yes.
There's someone in this world who has gone through similar stuff. They just the
Yes.
experiences. Everyone has different experiences.
I agree. I agree.
So
So self
go ahead. I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. I was just gonna say, so self care is just everything for me. It's how and inner care. I had to do inner self-care too. I really had to dig deep. People don't understand. I had to expose myself. I didn't want to give anyone an opportunity to check or expose me and my mental health. I wanted to take care of me at this point. Well, it's like my awareness was awakened.
Mhm. And you said
My
you stood
awareness.
on your knees and cried. I did the
Yes,
same
I
thing.
still do.
I peeled myself off to a skeleton because I had to take all
Mhm.
that all those dirty layers off. And you did too, because that's how we get to really check ourselves.
Yes,
And
yes.
on the inner
And when
part.
I tell you the yes, yes, yes.
So Latrina,
Mm-hmm.
what do you
Mm-hmm.
do now? What is the Truth to Change coaching actually about? Can you tell us all about your business?
Yes, it's a revamping coaching program because I only can give what I have and what I know. And I went through a full revamping process with myself. And I feel that everyone should do self-reflection often. We should be checking in on ourselves. And my program is all about doing the work for yourself. Here's the tools. We can do it together, but you're gonna do your work. Let's do the work. Let's do the work. It's all about revamping yourself. I have courses coming. I have a whole school coming because I'm in the process of certifying others to be life coaches.
Wow, that is amazing. So,
Yes.
Latrina, a lot of people ask, and you and I work in the realm of therapists, some in some form of way, right? We
Yes.
know
Hmm.
that things don't come up between the 9 to 5 hour, Monday through Friday. That's what we do for
Yes.
our day job. Do
Yes.
you accommodate people on weekends and evening hours?
I typically don't have a 9 to 5 hour schedule.
Okay.
So Sundays and Mondays are my days I do
Okay.
nothing. I take care of my chores. I just do
You take care of you
nothing.
and your family.
Yes,
Okay.
that's right. So during the week, I have a schedule where I do see clients like on Wednesdays late. I do accommodate. I do. I have a schedule where it's set where I have my time for me and I have my time for them. I do have nights. And on weekends, I do just a little bit Saturday mornings. And when it's times that I feel I'm going to be doing something, I let them know way ahead of time. Or I do a fluctuating, like a bi-weekly,
Wow.
just to give myself that flexibility. But Sundays and Mondays, no
Yes. And
clients.
that's because those are your boundary days. You set boundaries.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad that you are a coach who works beyond the 9 to 5 shift. And I say that as a social worker because I'm still in the field. And when I did a
Mm-hmm.
survey I've been in the field 17 years. I started my journey 15 years. So about a 15-year survey. And I really,
Yeah.
when I was, digging deep, I realized that nothing happens between 9 to 5. All
Right.
calls start at between 6, 2 o'clock in the morning. And
Mm-hmm.
as a business owner, I felt, wow, these things really happen at night. Nothing really happens during the day. It's like
Right.
crickets. So
Yes.
I always, because clients say my therapist gets off at 5, I have no one to talk to. And I know because I'm one of those therapists that get off at 5, and my
Yeah.
clients don't have access to me. So I
Yeah.
do feel bad, but I work for an agency, so there's nothing I can do about that. But I
Right.
said when I open up my business, I'm always gonna have those late hours because I do understand
Mm-hmm.
and I
Yes.
can relate. So how can we contact you on social media?
Mm-hmm.
What is your social media handles?
Okay, so on Instagram it's C2C Coaching, and on Facebook. So it's C2C Coaching, and that is my coaching program.
Do you have a website yet, Latrina?
I
We
do.
need that.
It's yes, it's c2ccoaching.org.
So I want to thank you, Latrina. Thank you for sharing your journey to self care. because you went from sleep apnea, domestic violence, a rape survivor, and guess what? You're here helping so many men and women, because not
Yeah.
just us women go through stuff. We know behind the scenes our men go through stuff as well. And as coaches, we don't say we're going to help one, we're going to help them all. And if anyone listening to this podcast, Latrina just offered, if your child has an autoimmune disease, and of course your family may can't relate, they may be there, but if you want that nitty gritty help, where Latrina's gonna tell you step by step of every feeling you're gonna feel, because that's your baby laying in a hospital bed. I encourage anyone listening to this podcast to please contact her. I'm gonna make sure I have her links in the show notes, but I know those that's listening, contact Latrina. Thank you, Latrina, so much
You're
for
welcome.
recording this episode, for sharing your journey to self care, because your journey is just as important as everybody else's journey, and your journey will allow someone else to start their journey. So, thank you very much.
Yeah. Oh, you're so welcome. So welcome. Hopefully, we can connect again. I'm available.
Absolutely.